bibliophiles and those racing bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, finding which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. So if you're looking for a real review from a mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. So this week's book review is for The Black Bottle Man by Craig Russell. And this is about a man named Rembrandt who must find a champion to fight the devil after an unfortunate series of events when he is just 10 years old. The story opens with Rembrandt now 90 years old. The sequence of the story then goes back in time in some chapters to his childhood, kind of like 1927, 1928, before skipping ahead at other points. Meanwhile, there is another storyline kind of weaved in with Gail and her husband Raymond. The chronology of the story is a little bit awkward at the opening, and it takes readers a little bit of time to get into the story as they kind of have to figure out who these people are, their connections, and the conflicts. Any sort of reader who struggles with comprehension or stories that kind of lack a little bit of continuity, they're probably going to abandon the story before they get too far. But I don't want to get too far ahead just yet. I want to read a little bit of the opening to you just to give you an idea of the author's writing style. So chapter 1, the author does let you know kind of who and where you are at the moment. So chapter 1 begins with Rembrandt, and it is 2007. In 5 minutes, Rembrandt celebrates his 90th birthday. Then he has 30 days to live. Not that anyone here will be baking him a cake. It is his first night at this shelter, but the Salvation Army folk are always good to him wherever he goes, always good for the hot meal and a warm cot, but they have plenty on their plates already. The Sally Ann dormitory stinks, but Rembrandt is used to the reek of unwashed bodies in homeless shelters across North America. He has inhaled the musk of men who stumbled through life, the sour odor of women too shattered to care. And before there was such things as homeless shelters, he'd shared countless shanties with hobos and migrant workers from Texas to Alaska. For 80 years long, Rembrandt has been on the move, but he is not like the others in this cot-filled hall. He's not a drunk, not an addict, nor currently a madman. Nevertheless, he moves on every 12 days, sometimes sooner if a place offers too much of its own trouble. But he never stays longer than the 12. Like an 11th commandment, the pact has fixed that unrelenting time limit. It is part of a bargain that has ruled and ruined his family for 80 years, a covenant forged from family pride and maternal desire, and unforgiving as an iron rod laid upon his shoulders, a burden at first shared with his pa and Uncle Thompson, but now carried onward by him alone. Back in 32, when Rembrandt was just a boy, his uncle Thomas Thompson had broken that rule, staying in one place longer than the requisite 12 days. They'd meant to pass through Billings, Montana, but Thompson got himself hired on to break horses, while young Rembrandt, at 15, was handed a pitchfork and told to muck out the barn. The horses were buttes, wild mustangs trapped by the ranchers, and everyone said Thompson was a dab hand at breaking them. Making good money at $2 for a mare and $5 for a cut stallion, they put away $10 a day or more. Far better than the $1 a day strong back jobs they usually found. With that kind of folding money, plans were made to buy some badly needed boots. Maybe the devil had got into that horse, or maybe a ranch hand wanted to take Thompson down a notch. As the boy was to learn, in life, often the why doesn't matter so much as the what. And the what that day was him at age 15 driving an unsprung wagon down a long, hard rut road with the man who'd stood in for his pa for the last 4 years lying in the back, near broken in half by pride and a wild horse. But that wasn't the worst of it. The 12-day deadline was coming. So it kind of gives you a little insight, a little intrigue. The story definitely is engaging and really pulls you in there at the beginning. This story is kind of marketed more towards YA readers, definitely a little supernatural, speculative fiction story. Going back in time, Rembrandt at age 10 is the only child among a family of siblings. He, in neighboring farms, his father's siblings' family is still without children despite all the effort and trying. An early part of the story is focused on this sort of effort and the desire with references to it. The black bottle man is the devil, and he shows up with ink that, when applied with special instructions, children will be born. So Rembrandt's aunts, Annie and Emma, use the black bottle man's charms and each become pregnant. Annie's husband is distraught and upset by what they have done, so he leaves and essentially abandons her. Uncle Thompson and Paul challenge the devil and end up making a pact with him that includes Rembrandt to find someone to challenge the devil and release the souls of Annie and Emma. Part of the pact is that they cannot stay in a city or town for any longer than 12 days to find their champion. So, through a series of events, Pa and Uncle Thompson end up dying, and Rembrandt is left alone at the age of 15 to complete the pact. He eventually makes his way back to finding his mother, meeting his cousins, finding Uncle Billy, who also dies trying to beat the devil. And they finally weave the story with Gail, who is able to kind of sense, who is, in a sense, able to beat the devil. There are a lot of spiritual elements in this book. It isn't just like a fight with the devil, but there are also special like hobo signs that are related and learned throughout the story that really affect situations. Rembrandt seems to think that these are good signs. It's essentially like a form of magic by making symbols. Religion is displayed as a force of condemnation and solace. In the end, Rembrandt stops Gail from fully beating the devil, as he seems to realize that the devil wants another opportunity to challenge God, and ends with telling Gail, "You've done it. You beat the devil, you see. Don't give the devil what he wants, and you've beat him." And so by not giving the devil what he wants is the way to beat him. And so that's kind of a key quote in the story. There is some profanity in this book. Readers are going to find damned really sprinkled throughout a few times, as well as some other words that I would encourage you to go to my website at holdingsteadfastreaders.com to get some of those details. There is a reader guide at the end with questions. These questions really relate to a lot of the topics in the story. So music and history, to name a few, as well as religion. Under the religion, readers will find questions like, many of the characters in the novel have sinned. Who can God forgive? Who might not be forgiven? If the Bible is an expression of God's views from 2,000 years ago, could his opinions have changed? Can prayers influence God? As well as a few others. So I just kind of want to make you aware of those and kind of throw that out there. The story does end with realization to not give in to temptation, that the devil wins when he gets what he wants. And yet the scene does end with Gail giving into the temptation to eat Rembrandt's toast when he leaves the table, ultimately highlighting the struggle of humanity. Again, this novel is listed as teen fiction. However, I don't think this story would really appeal to most teen readers. I would definitely place it more in adult fiction. Personally, I think just because a character is a teenager for a portion of the book, that doesn't really solidify for me entirely to kind of put it in that genre. Again, the story opens with Rembrandt being 90 years old, and it does go back in time to kind of give his story. Personally, the story is not really my favorite. I do see some of the premise of the story. I can appreciate the author's line and context and kind of trying to explore certain themes. There are just some phrases and wordings that are also beautifully written, and the development of the story definitely took a lot of care and time to kind of develop and put together. So I can definitely see a lot of effort and intentionality on the author's part to kind of clearly tell this story. Ultimately, just not my taste. So definitely not a book that I think would appeal, or one that I would recommend to most readers. But I definitely just kind of want to make you aware of this book that's out there. So if you come across the title, you kind of have an idea of what this book is about. So I hope that's helpful for you as parents trying to find great books for your children to read. And I hope that you'll join me next week for another book review.